What up, world? What's up? What's good? What's good? It's your girl, Brittany Kristen, and I'm welcoming you to Nightmare Radio Show. We're doing a little something different, of course, today. I know that you all are used to seeing my beautiful co-host, Ish, holding it down for our midweek interview series. But tonight, you all have me, and I promise you, I will make sure that I keep you entertained, informed, and all that good stuff. So, of course, I have a special guest that's going to join me tonight. We're going to get into a great conversation with my special guest. But before we do that, we got the church announcements because you know how we roll on Nightmare Radio. So without further ado, I definitely want to shout out our series sponsor, our show sponsor, Her Wine. If you haven't tapped in yet, make sure that you do. Her Wine is a Black woman-owned boutique dessert wine company based here in Atlanta, Georgia. She has quite a few different flavors and varietals, but right now, as we bring Black History Month to a close, even though it ain't over yet. The wine of the month for February was In My Feelings. You can purchase your bottle of In My Feelings using our discount code Don't Sleep. If you go to herwine.com, or if you're following us on Instagram, you can click the link in our bio and it'll take you directly to the Her Wine website for you to order your bottle of wine. Outside of that, if you're still in your feelings, if you're still wrapped up in the Valentine's Day afterglow, then I definitely encourage you all to tap in with Nightmare Radio Show on Apple Music and listen to our In My Feelings podcast. It's also In My Feelings playlist, excuse me. That's also sponsored by Her Wine as well. Okay. One more church announcement before we get into the evening. Shout out to every single artist this year that has had an opportunity to submit their music, and their music has been selected to get played on our show. We appreciate your support. We enjoy supporting independent artists and the artistry in its whole. So as we open up March and the rest of the months of this year, definitely submit your music. And you may get selected by our DJs to be featured in our weekly mixes during our weekly shows. Okay. All right. So I think that I ran everything down before I get to bring my guest to the stage. But if I haven't, just shoot me a message. Follow me on Instagram. Make sure that you are liking, commenting, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. We're on the road to 1,000 viewers, subscribers on YouTube and on Instagram. So we're literally just a few more people away from hitting the 1K organic follower trend on Instagram. But we want you to follow us on YouTube too. And that's where you can find the playback of tonight's interview. This is going to be bonus content on our Nightmare Radio Show YouTube page. So without further ado, we'll hop right into it. I would love to bring to the stage tonight's guest, Phil The Blerd Explorer.
Hey, how y'all doing? Good evening.
Good evening. Well, really good morning to you. You are broadcasting, coming to us live from South Korea, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's right. It's 11:36 a.m. Korean Standard Time.
Wow, 11:36 a.m. He's already in March, guys, for those of y'all that are watching at home. So let's get straight into it. So what are you doing in South Korea?
So my main job, I am an ESL teacher at elementary school. I teach English as a second language to students.
Okay, that's so cool. So I'm actually a former educator. This is my first year outside of the classroom, but I taught for 5.5 years. I also
Okay,
taught. Let me turn my phone off because people texting me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Hold on. I also taught English, and ironically, prior to me having my daughter, who will be 5 this year, I heavily considered teaching abroad, ESL,
Right.
and my 3 choices were Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and Guam.
Right.
So, how long have you been teaching ESL in South Korea?
Since 2016, going on 5 years. So I've been here since May 2016.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's the year that I started my little journey too. So had I made the wrong decision, I probably would have been seeing you in Korea.
Probably.
Okay, so 6 years or approaching 6 years in Korea. Tell me a little bit about your experience teaching the Korean children English.
Sure. Well, first off, I started from 2016 up to February 2020. I worked at what's called Hogwarts, or like these after school study academies, like kind of like a Sylvan Learning Tutoring Centers, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so there are many Hogwarts in Korea. There's one for math, science, art, pretty much every subject, and of course English is the most well-known one. They're for-profit businesses first and foremost. So, and that's how many of us got started. And of course, the other option, most people go to the public school teaching route.
Hmm.
Um, or of course, you got to teach at say international schools, or like if you're at like a specialized type of Hogwarts, like they do like say like high school level type of English classes, or like SAT, SAT, ACT type prep courses that they have. So I mostly did the Hogwarts, mostly with elementary students, and I switched over to public school back in around March 2020.
Okay, cool. Wow. So you made that transition right as the world was transitioning into
Yep, literally the
post
worst time.
COVID times, right? So
Yeah,
before we get to the COVID time of teaching,
yeah,
just
yeah.
just for clarity, your first stint teaching overseas, you were teaching in
Mhm.
person or were you doing virtual learning as well?
No, this is in person. I work go to the locations to the
Okay,
job.
cool. So I'm so curious to know, like, how was that experience? How was experiencing a pandemic outside of your home country? Like, are you first off, are you over there by yourself? Did you travel with
Yeah,
anyone that you knew, or did you just come over here,
I went solo. I went solo. So during the pandemic, so I switched to I was working in another city called Andong, working at Hogwarts, and I kind of felt burnt out. I'm like, okay, I need to change. Like my, even I knew like, okay, I'm not happy there at the job. Like my work skills or skills, just everything went down. And I knew I was gonna get fired anyway because I got like a little letter of warning that I need to improve. So I
Uh-huh.
switched. Okay, let me go ahead and try another route. So I found this ad for a direct hire for at an elementary school at their own English center in Incheon, which is near the capital of Seoul. And I thought, okay, let's give it a shot. So I got the job offer, and I said, okay, let's give it a shot because I always wanted to go to public school. I wanted to switch eventually, and I got the job offer back in January 2020, and I moved to Incheon back at March, the beginning of March, right? The pandemic really blew up, and for South Korea, the city of Daegu at the time for spring 2020 was the epicenter of COVID. And I used to live there too, like from 2018 to 2019. So it felt horrible to see downtown just be empty. Like I knew, people, pre-COVID downtown, especially on nights and weekends, especially holidays, people going out drinking, walking around, shopping, having a good time, but seeing the streets
Mhm.
empty, like it just felt surreal.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that every place across the world felt surreal during that time, but to be like in like ground zero of or
Yeah,
close to, ground zero of
yeah,
it
yeah.
all must have been quite an experience. So let's get into the real tea here,
Sure.
Phil. So you've got a book called The Black Traveler's Guide to South Korea, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am. That's not there yet, but I wrote two books. The first book was called The Black Child's Guide to Incheon, South Korea. I wrote that back in May 20. Well, I started the process in summer 2020. And book number two was The Black Child's Guide to Daegu, South Korea. I published that last May.
Okay, cool. So you are a two-time published author.
Yeah, 3-in-1, three is now the Black Child's Guide to South Korea. That's what I'm working on right now. But that
Oh,
won't be
and
ready
that would
for
be your third book. Okay, I
that
mean,
won't be ready for quite some time.
kudos to you for that. So for our watchers that are watching at home, a connection point and also like perfectly timed as we quote unquote conclude Black history, although we never really concluded.
Yeah,
We know that, or for those that don't know, the Black Traveler's Guide was an actual publication, a pamphlet or a
yeah,
service,
the
if you
Green Book.
will. Yeah, that African Americans used during traveling during the Jim Crow South or across the nation during times where it was really
Yeah,
unsafe, for Black people to travel. With it with sundown towns and of
yeah,
course like the tough, harsh scrutiny laws of Jim Crow. Something like a guide that literally outlined safe places for people like us to travel was almost essential. So here we are decades later, removed and continents removed, and here you are repurposing such an impactful and useful and necessary tool for our people.
yeah, yeah. So
That's
the
pretty
idea, yeah, thank you. I actually got the idea. Well, for my content, I usually do my content about the fusion of gaming, travel, black travel, gaming, food, all the jazz. things I enjoy. But my goal really was to encourage more Black people, particularly African Americans, to travel. Because
Yes.
growing up from '90s to the early mid 2000s, like I never heard or ever seen a Black person, African American, living or traveling abroad who wasn't in the military. Like,
Yeah. Actually, when I was, well, I'm glad that you answered
yeah,
that, from the very beginning. I was going to ask you, was it military that brought you to South Korea or education? Only because I knew that from as being a teacher,
yeah.
knowing that, a lot of teachers, educators make that trek, but I didn't know if it was military as well. So,
No, I'm not. I never joined the military. Um, yeah, and that's what kind of led me to that, to make these two guys, because one, it's a niche market, and nowadays, like during the late 2010s, you did see more and more African Americans traveling the world. You see more Black travel groups, right?
right.
And
It's
reading
almost
them
like
for the first
trendy
time.
now, like the travel noir,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, which
good.
is great. It's good, but we're still like a small demographic when it comes to travel.
Yeah.
And for a lot of African Americans who weren't in the military, for many of us, this is probably the first time traveling abroad, or especially going to Asia and going from a place like, say, because most African Americans, if they did travel abroad, it's always what, Jamaica,
Yep.
Mexico, or Bahamas, which is fine, of course. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
that. But
Right.
especially for those who are new to Asia, you're going from places where like Jamaica, or Bahamas, or Brazil, where you got a lot of Black and brown people. You're going to East Asia where there's none of that, hardly any of that.
Right.
And it's one of those things. It's like kind of like it's kind of guide to not only to hit that market, but also because I know there's going to be one Black folks who's going to give us a Black moment and going to make us all look bad. So at least I can probably do something to stop that.
Right,
Like,
right,
yeah,
of course. And so
yeah,
really as a way to like expose our culture, our
yeah,
people, our cousins, as I like to call them,
yeah,
my cousins, expose our cousins and provide a different way, because you make a great point. The 2010s and beyond have definitely seen an increase,
oh yeah,
almost like
very,
it's very trendy for Black people, especially like millennials, people in our age group, to travel. My dad is military background, so he and my mom got a chance to travel all through Western Europe leisurely. They lived in Germany, but they would do Nice
right,
on the weekends. They would catch a train and go to Paris in the middle of the week if they wanted to. But again, like I said, my parents were exposed to that primarily through my dad's opportunity within the military. Whereas
right,
now we see Black people are saving their pennies, or they're finding different ways to create these experiences. However, we love the Caribbean. We love a tropical vacation, and you make a good point. Maybe it is something about traveling and seeing traveling and being comfortable, because the
yeah,
people that are around us are similar to us. But for
right. Which ain't
me,
nothing. Yeah.
yeah,
Which of course there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to go for, I say go for it. It's your travel story. Do what you want to do. Um, but I always do believe when it comes to travel, I say this: like, go where you want to go to. Okay.
yeah,
But I think another big problem is when it comes to travel in general, right? I mean, nowadays you see a little bit more, but still, like, you just never seen. I guess most African Americans, we never traveled abroad because we're so ingrained with the U.S. to believe that America's safe, quote unquote, and that every other country is dangerous. We see in the media a lot of news, and also
right.
because we're afraid that we're so conditioned to think like, if America's racist, is this country going to be racist? Is this country going to be racist?
Have
Now
you
let's be clear.
experienced racism since being in South
No,
Korea?
I would say no. I mean, personally, no. Now let me say this. So when it comes to teaching ESL in South Korea, right?
Hmm.
And this ain't a secret. Like everybody knows, not just Korea, but also happens in Japan and also especially in China too, for sure. Definitely in China. But when it comes to looking for jobs, my only time I faced job discrimination because I had one recruiter this year told me that some locations they sent my resume to, they wanted a white teacher.
They flat out said that?
Yeah, like I've been here since 2016, so I was like, okay, I'm not surprised to hear that. But I was like, okay, at least some of you are honest about that for one. Some of us honest, but yeah, it's no secret. Like if you look at the demographics of the ESL teachers in Korea, most of them are white. A lot of them are white women.
Wow.
So now again, you still haven't. You can still like there are many black people who teach English in Korea. So let's keep that 100. So it is
Yeah.
possible, but it does take a little bit longer to find a job. So it's not it's not a
Wow.
secret. But
And so
I would say
being
it's more ignorance and
mm,
curiosity for black people, especially for me. I'm a 6'7", 2 meter giant dark skinned black man. So of course I attract a
you're
lot of
six
attention.
seven. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, well, I've heard, of course, and I know that you're going to debunk all of these things, but I've
Mm-hmm.
heard that, being Black and traveling in these Asian countries or living in these Asian countries, Blackness is almost sort of like a fetishized type of thing. Is that,
Part of
can you,
it's true. Definitely, there is some fetishization for Black men and women on both the gay and
yeah.
straight side. I've been told there
Oh,
is that.
wow.
Let's keep it 100. But it's really just in the day, it's more curiosity and fascination.
Yeah.
Not only because of Western culture, because hip hop, rap music, NBA players, Black people just pop in general, right?
Right, right, right.
So, and of course, there are many times where I had students. Now I never lived in Seoul or Busan, right? So I
Hmm.
lived in more of the medium, smaller towns. So a lot of times I was their first, and for some kids to this day, their first Black teacher they ever had, or
Wow.
Black that they constantly interact with. Let's put it that way, because most Koreans they really don't interact with foreigners, because they're pretty. Now South Korea, like many Asian countries, they're pretty conservative. So you
Right.
kind of stick to the only people that they know, like they knew person. It's not really common like in the West, like we'll make friends with anybody, right?
Yeah.
So unless you know how to speak English, right? That's the only time you might see a Korean talk to another foreigner, because again they want to lose, they don't want to lose face, they don't want to look embarrassed,
Oh,
and
yeah. Okay.
also because again, like if they do talk to a foreigner, most often, if they do interact with a foreigner, it's mostly going to be a white person, almost always.
Hmm. And
So
do you think again it's just because, I mean, of course, you know, Asians are different, but there's still just a slight, you know,
mhm.
similarity there.
Yeah, definitely. But also again, because many Asian countries are homogenous, everybody looks like 95% population looks the same everywhere you look. Hey, almost everybody will have the same hairstyle,
Yeah.
hair texture, everything. So skin tone, and of course, uh, so let me tell you a true story that happened to me. When I was shopping I was living in Daegu back in 2018, 2019. I was shopping at Costco one day,
Uh-huh.
and this little boy, I want to say about 4 or 5 years old, he looks at me, his eyes get super big, and he yells in Korean, "Mom, giant chocolate man."
Giant chocolate man. And kids will say anything. I know from experience
Yeah,
because I have a little one too.
right. And of course, you can Korean culture, they're gonna be blunt about that. So people say, "Oh, you're so dark," or "You're so fat," stuff like that. So they'll be blunt over here, both young and old. But yeah, and again, it's just again, in most cases for me at least, is more curiosity and fascination.
Yeah. And so when
Now,
when
great,
you
yeah.
when you experience moments like that, and then you mentioned that you're so tall, so again, I mean, even in the United States, seeing someone that's 6'7", you're gonna get questions anyway. Did you play
Yep.
basketball? What's your name? You
And
look
they're gonna get to the point.
But usually what's your reaction when those moments, when those instances happen? How do you usually react?
In some cases, I can. It depends on the age group. Like if it's like the young children, like elementary level, it's like okay, I can let it slide because they're young. It's like
Yeah.
how many times did I ever go see the black man walk through here? Let's be honest. Or like the very old senior populations, because again, that's not to see in their lifetime up in person, so I can't be mad at them. But usually it's the adult age, from the late 20s, like high schoolers to middle-aged adults. Are like, dude, guys, calm down. It's not that serious. You
Right.
know, it's like if you want to see a black person, you could at least go to Seoul Busan. You'll find more of them over there.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I know that Western culture is, highly consumed by Asian countries,
Yep,
and a
Marvel.
large chunk of like Western culture, if we're just being real and being facts, is Black culture.
Yeah, it's true. Of course. So I'll put it this way: it's not unheard of when you walk around down the streets of Korea or in either a grocery store, maybe not grocery store, like at a shop, clothes department store, clothing districts, restaurants, or in the gyms. You will hear uncensored hip hop. Like you hear
Uncensored.
mixed up like Korean K-pop music, today's hits, and of course you hear uncensored hip hop. So imagine you're walking down the street in 2020 and you hear WAP being blasted on the speakers.
I'm sure that it's probably like a sense of like
Yeah,
comfortability, like, yeah, okay, cool. So I don't, I'm not, you're not exactly detached from the culture, but it's got to be a different experience, watching
right.
everyone else that's different from the usual people
Yeah.
that receive the culture, like enjoying that as well.
Yeah, I get there's some kids. I mean, also there's Korean hip hop artists over here too. Um, there's actually a rap battle show they do like called "Show Me the Money."
Mhm.
Uh, so is that. But again, it's not because I would say again, it's mostly because of fascination. Because again, like Koreans, like, and this also applies to other countries. Like they're conservative, like everything is more a collective society. So there's no individualism like you see in the West. Um, so of course, when you see other culture like Black culture, and of course, probably the next culture is Marvel. Marvel is massively popular over here in South
Oh,
Korea.
great point.
Yeah. So
Because everybody
and
loves
back in
Marvel.
2018, when Black Panther drops, let's just say from I've been before, and me other Black folk in Korea can attest this. We've been called Oprah, Obama, LeBron James, various hip hop artists. But when Black Panther came,
T'Challa.
Wakanda teacher, Black teacher, you look like the teacher. You look like Black Panther. Think we did it. No one did that. I'm like, oh God, please no.
Of course, of course, of course. I mean,
But
that's
again,
almost a given.
yeah, because again, most Koreans, and for example, like I hate to say it, but most Koreans, a lot of them who don't travel the world, like never had a chance to travel, be outside of Korea. Uh, they kind of heavily believe in stereotypes about other cultures that they see in media, right?
Yeah.
So if you think an African person, oh, they think, oh, you must be poor. You gotta be a refugee or something like that. Or if you're a Muslim, you're a terrorist. If you're a white girl, you're probably a Russian prostitute or something like that, for example.
Oh God.
Or
I
you're
didn't now
easy.
the third one, you definitely
Yeah,
knocked me with the third one, but okay. But just knowing that, knowing first off, stereotypes are everywhere. People subscribe to those no matter where you are, what
yep,
continent you're on. But given today, like the climate over here, I'm sure that you communicate with your family members, your friends. You know, shit is
yeah,
crazy over here in the States, and I mean, it's on an average regular day, it's tough being a black man or woman, but being in Korea,
mhm,
knowing what's happening stateside, how first I can only imagine that that the stories that are being told and the experiences that are being told have a different persona from that side, but
mhm,
also, like how are you? How black man check in? Like how are you feeling? And then
yeah,
being that we're literally like on attack constantly as a culture, you're away from the culture, but knowing that these stereotypes are traveling across the waters and that these people that
yeah,
that don't actually understand or know about our culture, like to the extent they're
yeah.
receiving and taking all this in. So what type of experience is that for you?
It's interesting. Like, especially like back in 2020 when George Floyd, died, and I was at a low point too at that time because the mixture of COVID and that happened, and like that really messed up. So last year, when his murder, when the conviction came through, right?
Hmm.
Like I was it was still almost break time, it's almost class time, right? But I had like a few minutes left, right? And the kids, it's almost class time. They start walking into the classroom. They see me almost crying, right? And and
Same, relatable.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And my Korean co-teacher, she tried to explain in Korean, and thankfully she knew about the George Floyd situation, so she was able to explain.
Yeah.
And the kids, they said, "I'm sorry, teacher," in unison. I'm like, "Bruh, don't make me cry in front of you guys."
Oh,
But yeah, it does hurt because sometimes you do feel like like I guess survivor's skill in a way because I'm out here over here doing this, and I'm
wow.
not there, protesting stuff. Now there were virtual protests over here for Black folk because in South Korea, you're not visa law because of the visa laws. You're not allowed to protest. You can't participate in protests, even if it's just a peaceful protest, like Black Lives Matter protests, right? Now
Wow,
I
I
think there
didn't
were
know
some of
that.
those in Seoul. Yeah, because again, so one thing to note, it's different if you're going to live in another country. You definitely want to know the visa rules and regulations because every
Mhm.
country is going to be different. So you definitely want to check those out before
Okay.
you do it. And yeah, like I said, foreigners, regardless of your visa status, even if you're married to a Korean, you cannot participate in the protest
You
because
cannot what?
you can't participate in the protest no matter what. Yeah,
Wow.
because if you do, you can face fines. If you get reported because you participated in protest, you can possibly face fines and possibly get deported.
Wow. See, and this is why you got to write the book because we don't know
Yeah,
these things. And
yeah, yeah,
given times like this, of course, even across the sea, across the pond, you think, well, how can I still stand in solidarity? How can I
yeah,
make a difference? How can I make sure that my voice is heard over here?
yeah,
But
yeah.
then you
So
can't
there,
even do that.
even if you went to the legal processes, saying you want to do a petition, file petitions, protest at this date, this location was fine. But again, every country is going to be different. Let's keep that in mind.
Hmm.
but it's because every country has different rules and regulations. So keep that in mind when you travel or live abroad in another country.
Right.
And also, one thing I do mention in both my books, I stress this enough because you have to be careful if you or your travel companions, your kids, you have to be extremely careful if you have food allergies.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the food and
Yeah,
and all
sure,
of
sure.
that as well.
Sure. So one thing to know, so South Korean culture, there's a lot of, one of the main ingredients will contain like nuts, or nuts, seeds, tree nut seeds, shellfish, fish sauce, seafood
Yeah.
paste. So if you got those type of allergies, you're gonna have a hard time. Not just Korea, but Asia in general, because a lot of Asian dishes use those ingredients. So if
Right.
you got food allergies, then like you really got to study what goes into the ingredients. Not to mention, even if you went to say McDonald's, right? Every country has like different McDonald's menus. So even at Western
Right.
countries, right, you still got to be careful because there's still a high chance of cross contamination. Because food allergies, it's not as common over here in Korea.
Wow.
So you
And
got
of
to
course,
take it as a
I'm sure that these are things that you learn by experience, because I wouldn't, of course, I also don't have allergies, but I wouldn't think to consider something like that. So in
right.
your books,
Yeah.
do
I
you,
didn't
do
think about
you
that either for a while I was making my first book too. Like, oh, what about food allergy and stuff like that? So, but
right,
yeah, you're right. And it's one of those things because I'm fine. I don't have thankfully I don't have food allergies, but you never know. Somebody who could read in the book may have food allergies, and this is something they
right.
need to
Yeah.
consider if you're
Definitely
losing their
pertinent
life.
information that's necessary. So, with that, so we've talked
Mhm.
about being Black in Korea, with everything that's going on and food and stuff like that. But what is like, what do you do for fun? What is a typical weekend and weeknight out like in Korea, South Korea?
Honestly, so South Korea is known for its legendary party drinking culture. Like
Hmm.
especially Seoul is like kind of like the I guess say like the New York of Asia. Like it's a city that never sleeps. Like it's
Oh
very common.
wow,
Like pre-COVID, like people will be out late tonight, going bar hopping, eating, drinking, or sitting in front of like a 7-Eleven or convenience stores, just eating snacks and drinking all night, talking and stuff.
really? Just like at
Yeah,
home,
yeah,
huh?
yeah. It's just part of that culture. And of course, eating, drinking, hiking. Hiking is definitely a major part of the culture too, which I do from time to time.
Yeah, because
Because
I hear that the
yeah, geography
area.
is like South Korea is known for as a notorious known nation. The peninsula, really, Korean peninsula, is known for its hills and mountains. So wherever you go in Korea, you're gonna get some leg days in. So
Mm,
to me, I would say like they're not for the faint of heart. You'll definitely want to get your leg day and core days in before you start hiking in Korea, really.
okay.
Yeah. So and speaking of health, though, let me put it this way. So South Korea, like other Asian cultures, there's still a preference. The beauty standard that's been around for centuries
Mm,
is that you gotta be slim, you gotta look thin, especially for women. You gotta look thin, and also have a lighter skin tone, and of course not being fat.
of course, right.
So it now, so I put this in the book like you for my big and tall folk, you're gonna have a hard time shopping for clothes in Korea. Even in Seoul, you might, and if it says on this, might be able to find something your size, but no promises.
So what do you do for clothes? I mean, everything is online. Are we Amazon
Yeah, I
Priming
just shop.
everything?
I'll buy my clothes from like either from US and just ship it here what I
Yeah.
need because there's just so much. I know I could, but for me, I would have to travel to Seoul, which is like a 4.5 hour trip bus ride to
Wow.
from my current town on the East Coast, to reach Seoul. Just go clothes shopping. I'm not gonna do that.
Of course not. Right. Yeah, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not worth it. This is so interesting to me. So, how long do you plan on staying in South Korea, or would you like to raise a family there? Like, what are your goals and your next moves?
So now I'm a business major, but I'm actually looking possibly get look probably studying to get teacher certification online in the future, of course.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking about maybe next few years, probably looking. I think I saw one program is like $6,000 that I can pay for, for the certification. And then when by the time I get paid for that, I think I can do the praxis exam over here in Korea. I'm not too sure. I
Oh,
gotta
they
double
still do
check.
the praxis over there?
I think I did because I read a Reddit post somebody did that here, but I gotta double check that one.
Okay. And you know what? I
Um,
never asked you.
yeah.
Where are you from in the States?
South Carolina,
Oh, really? What part of South Carolina?
place called Blythewood near Columbia.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
Cool.
yeah,
My
yeah.
co-host
So
spent some time in South Carolina as well in
yeah,
college.
yeah. But as far as uh, I personally no, I don't plan on having kids ever. Like, so I'm gonna child free. I'm gonna be that cool child free uncle.
I know that's right, because you're gonna get all the stamps in your passport for sure.
Yeah,
But you are intending to stay in South Korea though.
yeah. For the next few years, next few decades, try to save a lot more money because uh, for me, I think, and many other foreigners can probably test it. It's like when you live abroad, especially like one of the benefits known about teaching English in Korea, right? Part of the job, like you don't pay rent. Like the employer will pay for the housing, like pay for the
Right.
rent. You pay utilities and stuff. So it's easy to blow. So for me, at least, for years pre-COVID, before COVID, like I would blow my money constantly. So I'm trying to do better financially.
Right. Aren't we
Yeah,
all?
exactly. But that I'm also gonna write a travel guide for South Korea, the Black travel a travel guide for the whole country, South Korea. But that's not gonna be there for quite some time.
Okay, cool. And it's funny that you mentioned that about, about the pay thing too, because when I was also considering teaching abroad, I was thinking in my mind, like, okay, girl,
Yeah.
you're gonna go over here,
Why
teach
not go for it? You
abroad.
can still do it technically.
Yeah, I battle with that all the time. So our show is based here in Atlanta. I live in
Right.
Atlanta. I have a small child, she's 4. And I often think about, like, if I were to, well, first off, I'm no longer a teacher. I
Right.
transitioned careers. So I do media marketing, branding, and then
Mm,
of course on the production side with the podcast, that's a full, those two things are full time. But
right.
when I was teaching and I was entertaining the thought of teaching abroad, in my mind I was like, okay, you're gonna go over here, you're gonna stack your money, pay off all your student loans on the,
Yeah.
and then when because the plan was for me to always come back, but to at least have that experience, because I haven't had a chance outside of living, through
Right.
college and in young childhood. I haven't had a chance to literally leave, the city of
Yeah.
Atlanta and spread my wings. Now that I've created this, this career path, these opportunities within media and stuff, I feel like the
Mm,
only logical move for me would to be to a place like LA, New York, or maybe Houston, depending on
right.
where. But on the travel side, I do want to travel. I want to visit Taiwan. I want to go to Japan
I love
and South
Taiwan.
Korea. Yeah, so how many what are some other places, because you are the Blerd Explorer, so I know that your explorers your
Yeah,
exploration
but
lifestyle.
yeah, I've been to Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Portugal. Now
Wow.
I did go to Germany when I was like 6 or 7, but I don't count that since again I was 6, that young.
Yeah, I feel you. What was your interest though? Like, do you have interest in Asian culture? Like, what brought you? What made you say, I want to go there?
One I actually was thinking about the idea. So back in 2015, I was in my senior year university trying to find a job, right? Going out
Mhm.
job fairs, resumes, nothing's going through. And I saw an ad about the idea of teaching English in South Korea. Now, me being an anime fan, as you probably tell by my shirt, uh, I thought about teaching in Japan, right? But I was looking
Yeah,
at pros and cons about Korea, Japan, and China, right? And I said, okay, let's go Korea. And because Korea and Japan are so close, like he's always visit at any time, which I still
right.
haven't yet. Because
Really?
looking into it, Japan is a little bit more expensive.
Mm.
So, uh, so I mean, so I would plan to visit there someday, but no guarantees, of course. But
Okay.
I don't know when I'm gonna do that. But yeah, so I definitely always been interested in Asian culture, especially for the food too.
Yeah. Oh, and the
So if
food is
something
really
that looks good to eat, then I will definitely go for that.
good.
And and of course, oh, also to answer the other question earlier, when it's the weekend, hobbies, if I'm not home, I'm usually staying at home, but usually I'll go out hiking, walk around the town. Usually go to like a gaming tournaments they have in Seoul if they have them during the pandemic, of course, when it's viable. And of course, I might try to write a chapter or two if I could get something down.
Yeah. Now, are there a lot of other Black people or other minorities in Korea? Like, do you see, Hispanics or
Yeah,
Latinos or? Wow.
yeah. So you do definitely see outside the military folk. Besides the military folk, and yeah, you see a decent amount of African American, other Black people, Black UK folk, South Africans. Of course, I see some Latin folk too, Latinos. Um, and I think there's some who are teachers too as well. But you did
Yeah.
see a little good bunch, and of course, see non Korean Asian. You got Asian Americans, Asian Canadians, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Right. That's pretty cool. That seems like such an adventure though, and you are lucky to be able to do that, to be able to, have the freedom to do that. Now, at Nightmare Radio, we believe that if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. That's like our monk here, that we
Mhm.
model everything around that. And so we chronicle like the dreamer's journey. So within your experience in traveling and, creating a new life in a different space, what
Mhm.
has been the scariest part of your journey?
The scariest part was when I first traveled to the Philippines in summer 2016. I
Mhm.
was unprepared because my first mistake was I didn't check my credit card. Well, I put my Korean bank. I used my Korean bank to try to travel abroad, right? But I didn't put that travel notice. So all
Yeah.
the money I had was in my wallet. So I had no access to my money. I had no access to my American bank account either, which sucked at the time. And I almost got stuck there. And also my big fear was I thought I lost my passport because sometimes when you're looking for a document, like say you're looking in your handbag for something, right? It's like, okay, I know my phone's right here, right? But
Uh-huh.
then we go look for it again. It's like, wait, where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
Every time I go to the grocery store.
It's like, okay, let's see. I know my wallet's right here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? But yeah, I had that fear. And also one big fear, scariest moment was back in December 2019. I was for New Year's. I was actually going to go to Thailand and Cambodia,
Uh-huh.
and so I got to the Incheon airport, and I found out that I'm on a work visa, 1 year work visa. I found out my visa expired back in September 2019. So basically, technically, I was working legally for 3 months in Korea.
Wow.
Yeah, so
And
this was at the ticketing booth, by the way, and then I had to go to like I guess like immigration officer like at the airport.
uh-huh.
But luckily, I told them like, listen, I'm still working here. I still want to work here, but they let me go so I can talk to my boss, figure out what happened.
Right.
And so I had to go to the local immigration office the next day, and I was scared that I was gonna get deported.
Right. Yeah, that's
But
why my
yeah,
eyes got big. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And of course, like being immigration officers, like they just love playing that character, being that mean asshole about it. But so eventually, I ended up paying like almost $1,000 fine.
Woo.
Yeah, and at the time, I'm thinking, like, okay, shoot. After this, like, and of course, when you work abroad or especially travel, like you're responsible for your visa. So always make sure you stay on top of that, no matter what.
Right. Right.
And at the time, I thought, okay, if my employer, because I asked her about this numerous times, but I haven't gone to immigration about this. Because previous jobs, I would go with my boss to go to immigration, take care of the documents, but no, that didn't happen at the time. And that's why it made me want to switch to public school at the time. And
Mm.
also, I thought, okay, this is back like December 27th, 2019. And at the time, after paying that $1,000 fine with my next paycheck, I thought this was the worst experience of my life. Nothing could possibly get any worse than that. And then a few months later, things got incredibly worse.
Right. Wow. Well, you definitely, I mean, I think that you've got enough information to write more than a few more books.
Yeah.
But after you finish with your South Korea stint,
Mhm.
do you see yourself, living for an extended period of time in another country? And if so, is there a chance of us getting a Black traveler's guide for that country as well?
Yeah, I've actually thought about making travel guys for the other cities. I can't promise countries because working
Yeah, it's
here
pretty
got
expensive.
limited enough. Um, but yeah, I have thought about that too because I figured why not? Because the niche market, no one's really done this type of content before.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you'll see. I've seen like a solo woman's Black travel guide and stuff, which is great and that's awesome. But I feel like why isn't that like an overall general guide for all Black people?
Right, exactly.
Because
And
I want to make sure.
you're
Yeah, I want
fulfilling
to make
that.
sure it hits everybody. This book can be read for anybody. You don't have to be Black to read this, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like the target is like for Black people who are, single, solo Black travelers, men, women, probably families created, especially for LGBT folk, because they definitely need something too.
Yeah, they do. That's right. That's true.
Yeah,
So for our viewers that are watching, and I know that the comments are going crazy actually,
yeah,
but
yeah.
for the viewers that are watching, where can they purchase or read the books, and how can they keep up with you and your travels?
Yeah. So I'm on both TikTok and Instagram at the Blerd Explorer. If you want to see both my ebooks, the Black Travelers Guide to Incheon, Incheon, and the Black Travelers Guide to Daegu, 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 is on Amazon right now in ebook formats.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm also working on my next book, Travel Guide for South Korea. So that will probably happen within the next year or two. I can't make any promises, but it'll be here when you know it.
Oh, I just jacked that all the way up. Let me delete
Yeah.
it. Let's see. Oh, it won't come off.
Uh,
There we go. Okay, cool. So one more time, you said The Blerd Explorer on IG, and your books are available for purchase on Amazon. Is that right?
right. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you can find me on Amazon right now. If you like travel, if you know somebody who loves to travel or who loves K-pop, Korean dramas, then yeah, tell them about my content. Tell them about the books. Like I said, this book, my next book is going to be for different cities in South Korea. I can tell you right now, one of them is going to be the city of Andong, uh, another historical city called Gyeongju, which I'm definitely had a good time in, and we'll go back for sure for more, photos and stuff. Yeah, but yeah, if you have any questions about Korea, just hit me up on there.
All right. Well, we certainly will. Phil, I have enjoyed talking with you today. I wish you the best of luck on the rest of your travels. And I'm going to check that book out as well because, like I said, I too would love to travel to South Korea, and to have
Yeah,
a handy dandy guide on the best cities for me to travel to would be perfect. So definitely have a future reader in me.
awesome, great.
All right, Phil. Well, we will catch you later. Have an amazing day since you're already in March over there. And as for me on our side, I'm going to end it by saying don't sleep. Got my PJs on because you know what's coming up next for me.
Yeah.
But thank you to everyone that's been watching. Of course, you can make sure that you stream our show, Nightmare Radio Show, on your favorite platform streaming podcast. Excuse me. Podcast streaming platform. You can also check out this interview and other interviews like it using our Get Familiar segment on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with your friends. It's your girl, Brittany Kristen. And as always, don't sleep. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, take care now.
See.
Excuse me.